Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of ICCBS Alumni Club, International Center for Chemical and Biological Sciences, University of Karachi, I warmly welcome you all in today's session of ICCBS Talks, which is basically a virtual seminar series. Before we begin the lecture, I would like to share a few quick housekeeping details to ensure a smooth session. Kindly keep your microphones muted during the talk to avoid background noise. You are welcome to turn on your cameras, but it's certainly optional. And if you have any question to the speaker, kindly type in the chat box. We will have Q&A session right in the end of the session. And please note that today's lecture is being recorded at Zoom. We can also share the recording with you. Thank you for your cooperation. And ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to invite the Director ICCBS, Professor Dr. Reza Shah, for his opening remarks, followed by introduction of the speaker. Sir.
Okay. So thank you so much, Dr. Hina, for the organization of this wonderful talk series, which we would like to organize. And thank you so much, Dr. Ahmar, for just sparing time. I know you are extremely busy these days, but you managed to find time, and this is your home country, and your love for the country is really appreciated. And we are extremely grateful to all the participants who just join us virtually, and I'm just happy to see that so many people are joining us. And Professor Britzel is also online. So thank you so much, Professor Britzel, for taking interest in this seminar series. So let me just briefly introduce the speaker. Dr. Ahmar Shah is currently a senior research fellow and tenured associate professor at the University of Edinburgh and the director of innovation at the Osher Institute. He has published more than 100 peer-reviewed research articles in leading international journals. He is also having 2 patents to his credit. He has completed his doctoral and master degree from University of Oxford in biomedical engineer. He obtained his BE in electronics engineering from GIK Institute of Engineering Sciences and Technology, Pakistan. He is expert in intelligent algorithmic development and data mining. So, Dr. Ahmar Shah, we are very much looking forward for your talk. He would be talking about AI as enabling technology, a perspective from healthcare for the chemical and biological sciences. So, over to you, Dr. Ahmar Shah.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. I'll share my screen, and then we can take it from there. Oh, just give me a moment. Okay, hopefully you all can hear me and my screen, my slides are visible now.
Yeah? Yes, we can hear you, and your slides are also visible.
Okay, thank you. So usually when I give a talk, I do say in the opening that feel free to interrupt me, but I think now because I can't see people, so I usually have it, generally I do it a bit interactive, where I ask a few questions just to gauge the audience, but I see it's not possible today, but so I'm just going to crack on. I assume that most of you would have used ChatGPT by now, but I expect that only a subset of the audience would have generated images with AI, etc. That's what I'm assuming. Anyway, so most of the slides, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, so a lot of the talks when I give, the slides, they're usually public. So you would be able to find even the slides that I have today, you will be able to find it on LinkedIn. Well, I will share them later. Okay, so let me just begin. So what I'm going to do is the talk today. Um, I'll have a few key components to it. First, I'm going to introduce AI, and I'm going to explain why AI as a technology it matters now across discipline. It's not tied to a specific discipline. Then I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about AI fundamentals. So the kind of words that you might have heard in the news, in the media, or you might have come across. So I'll hopefully explain enough so that they are demystified and it all makes sense to you. I'm then going to move on to talk about some case studies in healthcare. That's the kind of stuff that I have done as a researcher myself. I'm just going to spend a bit of time talking about three selected case studies, and I'll hopefully explain how that is relevant for what you guys might be working on, which I understand is quite different. And then I have a few slides talking about AI in chemical and biological sciences, and I'm going to suggest a few references that could be a good starting point. Um, and then I'm also going to have a section where I'll talk a bit about how you can use AI for everyday research workflows as a scientist, as a researcher, and then a bit on challenges and opportunities, and then happy to take on questions after that. So, first of all, the first section, AI across disciplines. So AI right now, why does AI matter across discipline? That's because AI is a general purpose technology. It's not tied to a single field. Just like when you think of electricity or when you think of internet, this is what AI is like. And it's an enabler of both helping you be more productive and it can also help you in discovery. So that's how I want you to see this, that it's a general purpose technology. It can enable you in both productivity and discovery. And the lessons that I'm going to talk about, well, the case studies I'm going to talk about healthcare, hopefully you'll be able to see how they're transferable to other sciences, including chemical and biological sciences. Um and right now, the other key point I wanted to convey right now, we are in the midst of an AI revolution. It's happening right now. And a quote that I'm going to, so that I have on the slide from someone that is quite well known in the community, Andrew Ng, um, who actually says that just as electricity transformed almost everything 100 years ago, today I actually have a hard time thinking of an industry that I don't think AI will transform in the next several years. So so that's what's happening right now. That's what we are in the middle of, an AI revolution. So hopefully now that initial introduction is has been conveyed makes sense. So let me just spend a bit of time talking about some fundamentals of AI. So first off, what is AI? Um, you may come across several definitions, but it boils down to uh, the ability of machines, especially computers, to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. So, what does it mean? It would be things like recognizing patterns, learning from experience, understanding natural language, solving problems. What AI does is it mimics certain aspects of human thinking and problem solving, which enables machines to perform tasks without explicit step by step programming. Okay, so that's the definition of AI. And now AI is it's not a single technique. It's an umbrella field with multiple traditions or multiple approaches. So one key aspect that used to dominate in the early days of AI was what we call symbolic AI, and it's it it was based on the paradigm that you can program intelligence based on certain rules. That if you have symptom A and if you have symptom B, then that means you have disease X, etc. So that's what symbolic AI is like. And they were great for well-defined tasks, but 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 for complex tasks, they were not good enough. And then there's a different paradigm called machine learning, which I'm showing in the middle. This is now learning from data, where you don't explicitly define the rules, but you throw in lots of data and then it starts learning from that. Um, and and now, going further, the third paradigm, which is this more hybrid emerging AI, which actually combines both these approaches. Right now, the most dominant paradigm is machine learning. So when people talk about AI, more often than not, they're talking about machine learning. But just remember, AI is a more broader field. So there are other approaches that are also part of AI. Now, why machine learning dominates? Why has it become the dominant paradigm? So there are three key trends in the past few years that have led to the past couple of decades that have led to machine learning dominating the field and being the dominant paradigm. So first off, we have a huge amount of data. I mean, the amount of data we have is unprecedented. This is a reference from 5 years ago where they estimated that by 2025, we'll have up to 120 zettabytes of data. And just to give you a sense of how much data this is, 1 zettabyte is equivalent to storing, like if you start stacking DVDs, which each DVD might store a few gigabytes of data. If you start stacking them, so you need to stack them up and go from the Earth to the Moon 7 times, and that would be 1 zettabyte. And now the amount of data that is estimated that we have is 180 times of that, and it's expanding. So that's one. We have massive amount of data. The other thing is we have massive computational power now. To give you an idea, the supercomputer that was used to send the first person to the moon, the smartphones that we all have now in our pockets, that's more powerful than those supercomputers of a few decades ago. So we have the computational power we have now is massive. And then the third thing is that we have also made a lot of algorithmic breakthroughs. So you don't need to know the specific names of these. I mean, I've just mentioned a few key ones, but uh, when you put all these three together, so massive amount of data, massive computational power, and algorithmic breakthroughs, all these three combined has led to this phenomenal progress and machine learning giving us this lots of opportunities and applications. So, and I just want to, because machine learning is so fundamental, I have this single slide that I usually use when I talk about explaining what machine learning is. So I'm just going to spend a bit of time talking about what machine learning is. um, in a nutshell, machine learning, it's learning from data. And to give you an idea, so imagine if you have a simple problem, we all get emails, right? So sometimes you also get spam. So say you get lots of emails and you have a problem of trying to identify if an email is spam or not. So one approach would be that you look at all those emails, the emails that you know are spam, try to study those, understand what the structure is. Maybe there is a specific word that is used common, maybe there are some grammatical errors, etc. So you study that, you come up with some explicit rules, and then you write those rules and you say that if an email contains such and such component, such and such, if they according like such and such rules, then that means that those emails are spam. A different paradigm which machine learning uses is that you don't explicitly program those rules. What you do is you will say, okay, give me all the data of what emails are spam, what emails are not spam, and then you throw it in to a flexible model, and the model automatically learns which ones are spam and which one are not spam. So in other words, it automatically or implicitly learns the rules. And this is actually one of the definitions of machine learning. In 1959, Arthur Samuel, so the definition is that machine learning is learning from data without being explicitly programmed. So that's machine learning. And then the word here, we say, okay, machine learning. So one slide just explaining the different types of learning. So uh, supervised learning, sorry, okay, that's fine. So the text underneath the arrows, not sure why it went there, but it's about like answers. So supervised learning is if you already have answers, so you know email, so you say these are my emails, and these are spams, these are not spams. So if you have data where you already provide answers to train a machine, we call that supervised learning. Unsupervised learning is if you have lots of data and you want to find different clusters, we call it unsupervised learning. So, like discovering patterns. And then there's a third approach to learning where you don't know the right answer. You're not trying to find patterns, but what you do is you learn by trial and error. So, an analogy is if you have like a robot and it's trying to move in an environment, there are places it needs to go where it will get a reward. So, it knows it's a good movement to have, and there are places where it shouldn't go because the reward that it gets, it's negative. So three paradigms: you give answers, so supervised learning; you don't give answers but you want to learn structures, that's unsupervised learning; and then you have this reinforcement learning, which is like learning from trial and error. So three types of learning. So that's machine learning in a nutshell. And then those are the fundamentals. Whatever you hear about AI, machine learning, large language models, the fundamentals are those bits that I just mentioned. Now, based on that fundamentals, that machine learning, we have other body of techniques. So there's a technique called deep learning. Now, deep learning is a specific branch of machine learning where you use a specific kind of algorithms called neural networks. There's deep learning, and then within the deep learning, there is a specific kind of architecture that has shown phenomenal use in language modeling, which is called a transformer architecture. So you have this large language model. So this is like, you can view this as a tree with the roots being that machine learning, the three types of learning, and from that you have all these other innovations coming through. And then one final slide in this section, which is the next frontier in this applied machine learning area, is um, uh, what we call AI agents. So, I mean, so far what I've shown is that we have deep learning and large language models. They grow out of the fundamentals of supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. But AI, I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. So AI is not standing still. The field is evolving towards something broader, which is called AI agents. And what makes AI agents different is that they don't just predict; they can also act. And um, the way to think of AI agents is like this. So if an LLM or large language model is a very like a knowledgeable assistant who can answer your questions like ChatGPT, an AI agent is like giving that assistant a laptop, an internet connection, and a to-do list, and letting them go off and do things for you. So and technically, agents, they are a fusion of paradigm. They use LLMs for reasoning language. So there's the that machine learning paradigm I said, but there's also reinforcement learning principles that they use, which is obviously could be seen a part of machine learning. But they also rely a lot on other aspects of software engineering to connect with external tools, code, and data. So that's why this combination is why AI agents are often called the next frontier in AI. They move us from models that answer to systems that act. And yeah, so I'll just move forward. Okay, so yes, I have, okay, one more slide on this, just to make sure that if you come across these terms, that they make sense to you. Um, this is a very famous Venn diagram. So I've slightly adapted this. This was Drew Conway was the person who originally came up with this. And this is because we have these debates about, okay, what is data science, what is machine learning, etc., what is traditional research. So one way to think about this is, if you are using skills of computer science, you are using mathematics and statistics, and you are using domain knowledge, all those three combined, that's data science. And machine learning itself would be using those mathematics and statistics and computer science. But this is just a framing for you to so that you don't come across confused if you come across these terms: data science, machine learning, AI. So that's why I have this there. So AI, you can, so this italics that you see at the bottom, so AI is the big ambition, and machine learning is today's dominant way to get there, learning from data. And when you apply machine learning in specific domain, people might call it data science. Yeah. And statistics underpins them all. Now, why am I going to talk about healthcare? I mean, there are thousands of applications in AI. definitely in chemistry, biology, physics, social sciences, and more. I'm focusing on healthcare because that's my area of expertise. Um, but I'm going to stress these are not uh, they're not these are not healthcare specific. The same way of thinking applies in your field. So I'm going to, hopefully I'll have slides which shows clearly why, how you can transfer the lessons I have in healthcare, but they will apply to whatever area that you are going to apply AI in. Okay. And yeah, in terms of framing, when I talk about those case studies, the way you need to think about is, you have an AI, this model, intelligent model. You have certain input and you have certain output. So input for me would be, say, signals from the human body, but that input for your field could be different. It might be sequence of amino acids, it might be molecule structure, etc. Regardless of what it is, so it's an protein structure in 2D, it could be in 3D, it could be some other insights. But whatever applications I so think of it in the way of, okay, you have different types of input and you have different types of output. So going to the case studies. Now, my first case study is this is so by the way, all the three case studies that I have, the associated papers with it, they are all published, and I have the DOI and the title, so you can go later and then um, um, just read more about this. I'll just give you the high level view, and also you will have access to the slides anyway. So this is a study we did several years ago, looking at identifying attacks in patients with COPD. Just let me tell you a bit more about, so COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It's one of the leading causes of death at the moment. Actually, one of the for in respiratory diseases. It's progressive. It's a chronic disease that affects lungs. So it's often associated with smoking, but there is a decent percentage of people who don't smoke, but they still end up having COPD, and their symptoms could include cough, breathlessness, wheezing, chest tightness, fatigue, dizziness. Now, a problem that, so most of these patients will have these symptoms on and off. A challenge that happens is that sometimes, if they can have these acute and sudden worsening of symptoms, and that's what we call an exacerbation or COPD attack in layman terms. And that, if they are not treated promptly, it can lead to hospitalization and reduce quality of life. So the objective of our study was, how can we reduce these episodes of exacerbation with digital health and thereby improving the quality of life. So the setup that we did for this study, you don't need to know the whole details, but in a nutshell, what we did was we developed an application which patients with COPD had, where they could input their symptoms. They also had a pulse oximeter, so which gives their heart rate and oxygen saturation, and we could also get their breathing rate, etc. We developed this system with clinicians. We did a randomized control trial for it ran over 2 years. We had over 100 patients, and what we got like a large number of data from it. So over 27,000 sessions, where the average usage was quite high. And from that, we got their breathing rate, their heart rate, oxygen saturation, their symptoms. And then we did some processing to develop an algorithm to see if we can predict COPD attacks. And again, as I said, the way to look at this would be, you have a machine learning model, you have certain inputs. So those in this case was respiratory rate, oxygen saturation, heart rate, and then we have an output which says whether the patient is stable or whether they're in prodromal stage, which means they are about to have an exacerbation. So some lessons from this study that are generalizable. We are doing a prediction, okay? We have some input. We are labeling this. So the labeling, whether we know whether a patient is stable or not, we are using the symptom, self-reported symptom and medications to define that. And we are using supervised machine learning. And then the output, the lead time alerts with guardrails on false alarms. So first of all, even if I'm using it in healthcare, the key point is, if you have data say you have data, you have certain kind of output. So the first thing is you have to frame the problem. What's your input? What's your output? What is it that you want to predict? Okay. Defining labels carefully. Now that's important. So in my case, like exacerbations were defined in a certain way. So you need to define those labels the way where it makes sense in your field. Engineering the feature. So I did some feature engineering. You need to think of how can you um, uh, where I had those like data points, their heart rate, breathing rate for 7 days, and then I use that to construct a feature. So you need to find out how can you engineer features. And then validation is quite important. If you develop a model, you have to test it as well to see that it's still working. So all those things were done in this study, but it would also be useful if you apply it in your field. Okay. So some notes. So like in chemistry, biology, just replace patients with molecules, cell cultures, or reactions. The logic is the same. Predict important events early enough to intervene. Okay. Now, going to a second study, I will stick with COPD because I've already spent a couple of slides talking what COPD is. So this was another study, again published in different journal, which was development and validation of a risk score for COPD. So the idea here was COPD patients, obviously, some of them, um, it's an umbrella term. So there are COPD patients who might need more attention, and there are COPD patients where they can get on with their life where they don't need much intervention. But stratifying patients based on risk is not straightforward. So a GP might be taking care of 500 patients, and it's not always obvious to them which patients need to be prioritized. And then in this study, what we did was we came up with a machine learning way using existing data to risk stratify patients. So a doctor can identify who are the high risk patients. And the way we did this was we had a large number of patients, over 40,000 patients who had COPD, and some of them died in 10 years, some did not. So this was what we call Cox regression. This is a specific type of approach where we tried to predict the 10-year mortality risk with a 10-year risk of dying. And based on that, uh, uh, we came up with a model, and then it could then stratify patients whether they're high risk or low risk. So some transferable lessons. So the use of real world data at scale. So if you have large set of data, that would probably give you value. And then in this case study, we ended up using that to come up with there was a real problem that we wanted to address. You have to define the time horizons that make sense for you. So in our case, the 10-year mortality, it's a time horizon because it's clinically useful. So in your fields, you need to think about what interval makes sense. It could be hours for lab assays, or weeks for experiments, or years for stability studies. Uh, Now, the other thing is survival analysis. It's a general tool for time to event models. So they're not just time to event models are not just for healthcare. Any situation where you care about when something happens, equipment failure, reaction success, progression to a new state, they can use survival methods. And then we always validate on independent populations. So we validated our model on a on a subset of patients that we had kept separately. So I mean, these are the same principles. They apply, um, um, yeah, in whatever your domain area is. One last study, healthcare systems modeling for capacity planning. So this is a study that was published in the Lancet not long ago, where I was looking at, because of the pandemic, we had this huge backlog, and this was a way of trying to understand that backlog and then um, support policymakers and the government uh, to know how much capacity increase they need to have to address those backlog, etc., and what would it mean um, if they don't uh, increase the capacity, etc., and how long would it take to peak, etc. So it's quite detailed study. It was actually, I'm just showing one paper, but there are a sequence of other studies related to this that we undertook. So in this case, our input was the monthly waiting time and the activity by specialty, different healthcare specialties. Um, we had some exogenous signal, like the demand is considered outside the system. It depends on a lot of other influences as well. COVID-19, then there's impact of COVID-19, different policies where we had lockdown, then we had lifting of restrictions, all those seasonality has an impact. And then we had a specific kind of model. This is a time series model. And here the output is a 12 to 36 month forecast. And then we had some uncertainty bands and uncertainty bands and what if scenarios. Now, in terms of transferable lessons, first thing, it's about systems thinking. So many domains have queues, throughputs, backlogs, and then you have different factors interacting with each other. So when you think of a like you would have problems where you need to start thinking of the different components that interact with each other, that influence whatever you are modeling. So modeling the system, and then the other thing is there might be factors that are outside whatever system that you have that you are modeling. So you need to include those exogenous drivers. External factors could be, it really depends. So it could be temperature, staffing, maintenance cycles, policy, etc. And then so in our study, I'm going to have one slide to show those results. So we had these decision-led scenarios. So they, just to make it really, really easy for policymakers, we came up with different scenarios where, okay, if the capacity is increased by 10%, what does it mean? If it's increased by 20%, what does it mean? So, so you can have these forecasts. I mean, these forecasts are most useful when they are paired with these what ifs, so that a manager can act on. Right. So these are some, well, the results I said. I mean, this shows a lot. I won't spend time on like in detail what it is, but basically we were looking at the backlog several years before pandemic. Then we looked at how disruption happened, and then the last part of what you see in the figure, that's like the what if scenario. So if you increase capacity by 5%, 10%, 20%, what does it mean for the backlog in the next 3 years? Okay, so I've shown you a few case studies, but what do they teach us? So, well, first, you need to frame the problem clearly. Yeah. You need to define the labels and outcomes with domain expertise. You need to engineer features to handle noise and missingness, and you need to validate properly, and then you have to report actionable metrics. So, hopefully, it should be obvious that they're all somewhat general purpose stuff. And so these lessons, my message is these lessons are universal. You can take this recipe and map it directly onto your own research context. Let me just, okay. So now moving on, AI in chemical and biological sciences. So I don't work in this area, but I spent a bit of time coming up with, well, finding some studies, etc. So yeah, I'm going to share, and I think one of the one that is actually one of my favorite that I was aware of it for a while now is to do with protein structure prediction. I assume most of the audience, if not all, would be very, very familiar about the importance of protein. But just let me highlight this part. So proteins, they're fundamental building blocks of all living organisms. We know this. We know this. Which carries out a vast amount of a range of biological tasks that sustain life. Now, by predicting their three-dimensional structures, researchers can uncover how these molecules fold, interact, and perform their specific functions, which provides crucial insights into their roles in health and disease. Now, finding out the structure, the 3D structure from the sequence of amino acids, this was a decades-old challenge. Okay, this was considered like biology's grand challenges for over 50 years. And this is something that was solved with machine learning or DeepMind, which was later then acquired by Google. And they have this, what they call AlphaFold. So DeepMind's AlphaFold, they use deep learning, which was trained on large scale structural data to achieve unprecedented accuracy in structure prediction. And this advantage accelerates drug discovery, enables rational protein design, and drives progress in molecular and cell biology. So what did they actually do? if you start, so I have this reference there. So the paper itself, by the way, I mean, and this was a few days ago when I checked, they might already have crossed more than 40,000 citations by now. So this is a paper that they published about 4 years ago, a bit slightly over 4 years old, highly accurate protein structure prediction with AlphaFold. And this paper, so many of you might already know this. Last year, they were awarded the Nobel Prize in chemistry for this AlphaFold AI that predicts protein structures. So it's quite useful if you work in this area. If you go to their website, alphafold.ebi.ac.uk, it provides an open access to over 200 million protein structure predictions to accelerate scientific research. If you go to this site, you will also find that they have like a freely available course which gives more detail on how this was the AlphaFold was constructed. But in a nutshell, they used supervised machine learning. They had lots of data of sequences that were then mapped to outcome of the 3D structure, and that's what they used to come up with this model. And then it was cited over 40,000 times, and they ended up getting the Nobel Prize last year as well. So quite amazing. Another area, so generative AI for drug discovery. Now, generative models, they allow us to move from searching existing libraries to designing new molecules outright. Now, this is a review paper that I found, and this summarizes how deep learning architectures. So I have a few different types. You don't really need to know those methods, but they are just, I mean, if you go to this reference, you'll see them. So it's like variational autoencoders, generative adversarial network, transformers, diffusion models. Now, they were used for this de novo design. And so models can generate molecules with predicted activity against a target protein. What it actually does is that it reduces the search space for synthesis, which means that you are it accelerates that time for you and when you reduce the search space. And then but some caveats, there are challenges to this, because drug discovery, it isn't just about designing new molecules. Molecules need to be synthesizable. They must pass safety and toxicity filters. They need to show efficacy in biological assays. So the challenge is, this is the key point, the challenge is combining generative creativity with real world constraints. So generative AI can accelerate discovery, but it has to be embedded in a pipeline with chemistry and biology expertise. Um, and the same principles apply if you are exploring material science, protein engineering, or chemical synthesis. Generative AI, so generative AI can propose candidates, but domain knowledge ensures that they're realistic. Moving to, so AI in microscopy, again, images actually used quite a lot in healthcare as well, CT scan, radiology, MRI, etc. But microscopy, so it's central to both biology and medicine. But manual analysis is time consuming, subjective. So AI, especially deep learning, this has transformed image segmentation and analysis. So um, quantifying cell types or phenotypes, extracting features that are invisible to the human eye. So this review paper will go into more details. And I think so the impact is twofold. One, you can do high throughput analysis, so thousands of images can be processed automatically. And then the second point is that it reduces human bias and variability, producing more reproducible results. Uh, so these methods are parallel to what we have seen in healthcare imaging, as I said, radiology, pathology. So the kind of methods that they use, there's a class of deep learning methods, often called convolutional neural networks. Um, yeah, so I think the key takeaway from this is that AI allows us to scale and standardize image analysis, making experiments more reproducible and enabling discoveries that would be impractical manually. One more for natural language processing or NLP for literature mining. So the volume of papers that we have, it's now overwhelming. So we have a large number of papers published every year, and no single scientist can keep up. I struggle to keep up. I don't even attempt to keep up now. It's not possible. But then these NLP models, they are designed to, there are dedicated now models that have been designed to read and structure information from unstructured text. And this one model, so reference again, BioBird, that was specifically trained on lots of data from PubMed. And some of the key things it could do is what we call is named entity recognition, like, for example, finding mentions of proteins, genes, chemicals, or relation extraction, for example, linking genes to disease pairs, um, or document classification. So what does it mean for us for as a scientist? Faster literature reviews, automated extraction of mechanistic pathways, support for hypothesis generation by spotting hidden connections. Um, yeah, so just as machine learning can find signals in patient and molecular data, NLP can surface hidden insights in the scientific literature. So see it as a complementary tool for discovery. Uh, so I have this just to bring all of this together before I move to the next section. So, I mean, at a first glance, healthcare, biology, chemistry, they might look quite different. I mean, healthcare deals with patients, vital signs, longitudinal records. Biology probably deals with cells, proteins, microscopy images. Chemistry would deal with molecules, reactions, spectroscopy data. But the way to look at this, they are all different kinds of data modalities. They all share the same. The AI foundations are the same. And then it's the domain expertise that differentiates, which makes all the difference. In healthcare, we might be defining what an asthma attack is or what risk means. In biology, what phenotypic states are. In chemistry, maybe choosing different endpoints of interest, yield, toxicity, reactivity, etc. So this is just relating back to the earlier point where AI is a general purpose technology and cuts across domains. Okay, just looking at the time. So the last so practical, well, second last section. So practical AI for everyday research. Will be a bit quicker now. So you can view AI as your research assistant. So for literature review, brainstorming hypothesis, drafting, refining manuscripts, coding, analysis. So I use it for coding. I also use it for proofreading, etc. It could be a good start for some literature review as well. Yeah, so uh, quite good. Lots of uses of it, and there are lots of tools as well. By the way, I assume most of you would have used Chat GPT, but there's also a comparable. And there are many competitors now. It's just like mobile phone. You have Samsung, Apple, I don't know, HTC, and so many other manufacturers. So similar situation here. OpenAI, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, there is Anthropic, so Claude, and there are others as well. So many. So these are like general purpose, like large language models. Some of them have agentic services as well, and there are some specific ones like AI for scientific research. Um, and then there's this PubMed GPT. So last night before this talk, I actually tried to compare just to check because uh, there are so many. I've not used all. I don't use all. I mostly use Chat GPT, sometimes Gemini as well. But just for the sake of this talk, so I went to this AI for scientific. So Elicit is the name. So I went there and I said, okay, I just put this query in. I want to understand the underlying causes of chronic diseases at the cellular level and how dietary carbohydrates, fats, and proteins impact our cells. That's all I gave it. And then what it did was I'm just showing this screenshot. So Elicit said it's building and refining understanding of the research, and it said your report will become available in 10 minutes. And then I'm just going to quickly show you what it generated. Hold. So let's see if this can come on screen. So I hope you all can see the PDF. So this was my question, and then what it did was it. So there's an abstract which said it come with 10 studies, but the highlight I wanted to show was the paper search. So I had a research question, it refined it, and then it says research across 126 million academic papers, and from that they retrieve 50 papers most relevant to the query, and then they define what the criteria is. Like they came up with the criteria aligned with what my question was. So what the human population is, the macronutrient intervention, the cellular level outcome, chronic disease focus, study design type, all that. So going further, there's a table I wanted to show you. So this is the 10 studies it came up with. The study focus, what the population was, the primary outcome, the key mechanism investigated, etc. Quite handy. Obviously, this is not going to be like something you just submit. That's not the point. The point is that if you don't know much about a topic, rather than you manually searching papers and trying to learn, this could be a good starter. And once you start that, you can look at the references, you can go further. So it just makes you probably a bit more productive. That's the point. But the other thing is some caveat. So you cannot expect AI to be an author. So it's a tool. That's what these are. Because they are tools, you are responsible for whatever you use this tool to generate. So if, for example, if somebody uses a hammer for whatever, it's the person responsible for using the hammer. The hammer is not responsible for anything. So same concept applies here. It's a tool. So authorship, etc. They can't be an author. You are an author. So if you are using that, it generates something. You are responsible for each and every word, each and every reference.
Can you just remove this window because we are having issue in viewing your slide?
Oh, sorry. Is it okay now? Apologies.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Okay, sorry for this. Right. So I was looking at a different screen. Okay. Yeah. So that's the just to give you an example, this is a paper that I published, and in the acknowledgement, so you have to be transparent. If you are using AI, you just say, so this is a paper, this is already published a while ago, and I've clearly written that what I, so I says my name, Syed Ahmar Shah. So I use Google Gemini and Chat GPT as a spell checker, as a grammar checker, and as a tool to help suggest revised sentences to aid readability and improve clarity. And after using this tool, the authors reviewed and edited the content as needed and take full responsibility for the content of the publication. So, by all means, you should be using AI to be more productive, but you are responsible. So, first of all, know that you are responsible. Don't just dump the output that you get from AI. And then the other thing is you have to be transparent and declare all these, like the use cases. Um, and just a couple more slides and then I'll be done. So the challenge is to keep in mind, again, this bias and fairness, this is quite a challenge because the data itself, the biasness is embedded in the data. So if you use that data to train machines, they'll also have that bias. So it's quite important to be aware of these challenges. And then the data quality, if you are developing a model and that the data is noisy, then that will also have an impact on the output. And then again, this point about hype, there are lots of people who are using, I mean, AI is being used or mentioned in so many places now. So there's a lot of hype. So we as scientists need to be aware of and be capable and be knowledgeable enough to separate hype from reality. And then some other things specific to this, AI can sometimes come across very convincing, but what it does is hallucinations, what people call hallucination. And then the other thing, there are some studies on this. If you fully rely on AI and if you are not actively uh, absorbing what it's saying or engaging with it or refining it, there is this concept called cognitive offload. So something to be aware of. So it's a challenge. So and there's obviously the challenge of misinformation because it can churn out content at an unprecedented pace. And then in terms of opportunities, I think moving into the future, so integrating different data types like text, images, spectra, sequences. So that will probably give us richer insights across disciplines, which might not currently be humanly possible. So, and then the way to look at the smarts, which I call the smarter lab workflows and automation. So you can think of AI as an assistant that can help streamline repetitive tasks like experiment scheduling, image annotation, or monitoring equipment. So which frees up researchers to focus on interpretation and creativity. So it's not really replacing about scientists, but it's augmenting human ability. Um, and also cross-disciplinary discovery support. So because AI methods transfer easily, breakthroughs in one domain can accelerate progress in others. So the future that I see is about human and AI collaboration. Scientists would remain central. AI helps speed those boring parts so researchers can focus on discovery and meaning. So the take-home messages, that's my last slide. So AI is an enabler. It's not a silo tool. And machine learning fundamentals, they still underpin all these breakthroughs. And healthcare case studies, they just illustrate those transferable methods. And AI tools can already help your research workflow today, right now. If you start using it, you will hopefully improve your workflow. And you just have to remember that you have to be responsible when you use AI. And with that, I'll stop. Just so I have my QR code if you want to connect with me. So I'm reasonably active on LinkedIn. That's the only social media platform I use. I also have a website, ai4health.uk. I'm currently working on this synthetic data for healthcare that hopefully would be released soon. And with that, I'm happy to take on questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmar, for such an exciting and informative lecture on AI. So I see we have, I think, one question in the chat box. If you can open your chat box, or I can read it for you as well, whatever you want.
Let me see if I can. I'll try. Hold
It's
on.
in
So
last one in the chat box.
yeah, okay. So it just okay. So what am I? Oh, there are some other dialogue. Okay. So we at Sci, is it this one, the Claude AI in the backend process? Sometimes it goes into health, other times it destroys the code. For scientific code, we are using the backend for proofreading, but most of the time generates fake citation. Oh, this is sorry. So this was not a question. Yeah. So you have to be. You used all the black box techniques of while why did you use the explainable? Sorry. So I'm trying to if while why did you use the explainable at the same time? Sorry if I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, but the point is, but anyway, I'll just if it doesn't answer the question, then just please, Naveed or Rahman, please jump in, and then happy to, yeah, elaborate. Uh, yeah, we have a class of methods. Some are simple, some are more complex. Simple methods tend to be more interpretable. Complex methods tend to be more black box. And when we do machine learning empirically, you try to, if you are optimizing performance or accuracy, typical workflow would be machine learning is very, very empirical. So you would try all class of methods, the simple methods, the more complex methods, and then you see whether the prediction you are getting, is it better? Is it better than what you get with simple methods? If it's better, then the requirement would be, the next thing would be, you also want it, depending on the context, you want it interpretable because you want to understand, and because of all the challenges and the bias, etc. So then you have different methods to make even those black box methods more interpretable. We call them more post hoc methods. So we don't have a preference generally as scientists to say whether we want to use simple methods or more complex methods. It really depends on the context. But if you use more complex methods and if it gives you better performance, it will come at the cost of less interpretability. And then you have other methods on top of it which can help to make it more interpretable. So I've used in my studies when I work, I use all methods. I don't have an inclination for one or the other, but it really comes down to the context.
Thank you, Amar. So we have given the rights to open the microphone. So if anyone has a question, so you can speak up directly, please. If anyone has a question to Dr. Amar. Okay, if not, then I want to ask Dr. Emmer. You mentioned that people are using AI for drug discovery, and as we understand that drug discovery involve lots of lead optimization as well. So how synthetic chemists or medicinal chemists can use these tools for their research and lead optimization, and what kind of data is exactly required to use it effectively?
Okay, so yeah, so I'm not, I don't work in this field, as first disclaimer.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I can tell you from my experience in using in different so there are these general purpose tools, okay, which are usually which does reasonably well in generic kind of tasks. And then there are more specific tools where people try to impose guardrails, and maybe they train it on more specialized data so that it gives better outputs. So I think for drug discovery, because this is a very niche area, so you have to see and investigate if there are there might be some so there would be tools. Some of them would be better, some would not be useful. So I think the better tools would be those that have been developed in collaboration with people who work in this area. So unless there are domain expertise using as input, who can then define what those guardrails are, where the black holes are, or where the problems come up, then I think I don't expect the generic tools to be good enough. So I think in your case, you have to find out what are some specialized tools, and if there aren't any, maybe you want to collaborate with people who make these tools and see if you can come up with better ways. But I think in any field, you will get hallucinations, you will get problems, and then there's the issue of the data. So I don't know what kind of data exists in drug discovery, but as a principle, if you have better data, the model you get would end up being more useful, or the system that you have with the sufficient guardrails. So that would probably end up being more reliable. So again, somebody mentioned about these hallucinations and making like made up citations. Now there are more specialized tools that don't make up like made up citations. And the reason that happens is because those tool developers have added additional guardrails to make them more customized for their domain. So I think for drug discovery, that's yeah. I hopefully this gives you some clues. Sorry, I don't know about
Yeah,
specific.
no, no, yeah. You have rightfully answered my question. Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmar. I'm sure the lecture will serve as a basis for lots of brainstorming for our students and alumni across. So, thank you so much for spending time out of your busy schedules. I hand over the mic to the director for the closing remarks.
Okay, Dr. Ahmad, first of all, thank you very much for sparing time and sharing your wisdom with us on a very important topic related to AI and its role in the health sciences. Indeed, it was an informative lecture, although it is not my area of expertise, but actually I was just uh, the part which I attended. It was very much well explained, documented, and you supported all the claims and all your points through very credible and authentic proofs. And I'm happy that so many people joined us online. And with this, let me once again thank all those people who attended this lecture online and sparing your time. I hope you would have learned from the lecturer, Professor Dr. Ahmar, and thank you so much. And God bless you. Allah Hafiz. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending. Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. I will be back with another exciting lecture soon. Thank you. Bye bye. You have a good day.